I did not realize that the thoughts that were happening in my own head, like, could be changed or different, right? I just
Yes. Yeah.
believed myself for the
Hmm.
longest period of time. It's, if I hear it in my own head, then it has to be true, or that's just the way it is, or that's just how I am, right? We hosted a big event for our community a couple weeks ago in Richmond, and this is my favorite language game that Mark has ever done. Write down, it's just the way I am,
Hmm.
period. Second line, right underneath it, it's just the way I am thinking. One word, totally different
Hmm.
experience of myself. And if I say, if I believe the story, which is it's just the way that I am, I
Hmm.
have no ability to change it. I have no responsibility in it. Really, it's me throwing up my hands
I'm a
and
victim of
saying,
circumstance.
whatever. This is just the way I am. This is the way I was designed. This is just how it is.
Throwing the towel.
And then you add on that one word, and it's just the way I'm thinking. And it's like, oh, well, if it's the way I'm thinking, could I think differently? Or it feels more tangible. It feels potentially temporary
Hmm.
versus resolved for the entirety of the rest of my time. And when you can identify the difference between believing the story, which is that I was abused as a child, or I've always gotten the short end of the stick, or men are never going to find me attractive, whatever the thing is, if I just believe that, right, those core beliefs that I'm holding and that's how I'm operating out in the world, it's difficult to change that just by telling me the opposite of it, or just by the coach or the guide saying, well, that's really a limiting belief. Okay, great. Well, what am I going to do with that?
What was your first statement there?
It's just the way I am.
Then it's just the way I'm thinking. But the third level, it's just the way I'm being thought. And
Yeah.
why is that important? Because if you look at Mark Wu Lin's work, his book It Didn't Start With You, which is on inherited family trauma, since he published that book, he identified that trauma is 3 generations deep, but current research is saying between 14 and 21 generations, which they've done measuring cortisol responses and all sorts of things. But it's good science showing that we're probably being influenced by 14 generations of our ancestors. And so when you think of how things move through a family line, mom was raised by grandma, who was raised by her mother, and so these things just roll downhill like water.
Perpetuate.
The reality of it is, it's also the way we're being thought, because those things reverberate inside of us. And it all boils down to, what is my dream? And is this story or thought actually serving my dream, or is it taking me off course? For me, I'm always thinking, where's my dream compass pointed? If my mother was thinking this way, or my ex-wife or whoever is reverberating in me, I just acknowledge that and say, oh, it's nice to hear you reminding me that I may not be successful at this. And then I just restate my dream. I choose to be XYZ. And then I restate it, the thought, whatever it was, I restate it dream affirmatively. I will complete this, because I always complete my projects, because I don't start projects that I don't love to do. And so I just keep taking the thought, being thought, convert it, or taking the thinking that's rattling around in the head and just watch it and say, oh, isn't that cute? Look at the, I call my mind my dog. I say, my dog's chasing tires again. Look at my dog go.
Yeah.
But you see that I think one of the most important things for people listening to realize is that you're either being thought, which means you're really just a victim to your thoughts, or you're clear on what it is that you want to create in a given situation and say, okay, how do I identify the parts of me that are reverberating and not contributing, and how can I take advantage of the opportunity to convert them? Because if we don't take advantage of the opportunity to convert them, they just keep coming ceaselessly, because they're woven into our unconscious. So they're like a loop tape. But once you start emotionalizing your dream, bringing yourself into conscious awareness of what you're choosing consciously, and then using those mind viruses as an activating technique to say, now I'm going to choose to create a positive dream affirmative thought, you're actually beginning to build new neural networks that support that. The key thing is if you don't put your heartfelt emotion in it, then you don't have enough force. It's like a record. If you lightly scratch it, it makes noise every time it comes around. But if it's got a deep scratch, it'll ruin the record. So if we don't do the work to put the emotion behind our conscious willingness to take responsibility for our mind, then those deep scratches just keep going on and going on.